She thought she had finally found safety, a home where she could belong. But the moment she stepped through the door, everything turned upside down. Words cut deeper than fists, and eyes that should have welcomed her were filled with judgment. In minutes, her life felt smaller, colder, erased. Yet what came next would shock everyone who doubted her worth. Who could have imagined that the very people who humiliated her would soon be left speechless? This is her story, and the secret they never saw coming. She had always believed in hard work and kindness. Every morning she woke up before dawn, carefully preparing for her job at the local bank, where she had spent years earning respect through dedication and honesty. Outside of work, she was quiet but proud, volunteering at community events, helping neighbors, and quietly saving for her future. To everyone around her, she was just another face in the crowd, a woman trying to live her life with dignity. But even in her familiar world, shadows lingered. There were whispers behind smiles, judgments hidden in polite nods. She had learned to ignore the subtle stares, the offhand comments, telling herself that her work and her integrity were enough to shield her. Then came the day that seemed ordinary at first. The doors opened, the familiar faces greeted her, but one presence stood out. A young man, brash and impatient, whose words and actions would soon make her question everything she thought was safe. At first it was small, a dismissive glance, a curt command, but the tension grew, a silent storm waiting to erupt. She had no idea that the challenges of this day would force her into a confrontation she had never expected, or that the people who underestimated her would soon discover the full measure of her strength. Every decision, every glance, every unspoken word was about to set the stage for something far bigger than anyone in that room could imagine. The ordinary was about to shatter, and nothing would ever be the same. The day started like any other. But the moment she stepped into the office, the atmosphere shifted. The usual smiles felt forced, the casual greetings hollow. Her adopted son, someone she had trusted, someone she had welcomed into her life, looked at her with a sharpness that cut deeper than any words. It began with small things. Papers shuffled away when she reached for them, emails ignored, meetings subtly rearranged without her knowledge. But beneath the surface, the hostility was growing, waiting for the perfect moment to explode. By midday, the tension had become almost unbearable. A colleague made an offhand joke about her heritage, laughter echoing in the room. She smiled politely, hiding the anger bubbling beneath the surface. She knew these microaggressions weren't accidental, they were intentional, a test of patience, a way to remind her of her place. But she refused to falter. Still, every glance, every whispered comment, every sideways look reminded she wasn't just fighting her own humiliation, she was facing the weight of prejudice, embedded deep in the walls around her. Then the confrontation came. Her adopted son called her into his office, a smirk playing across his face. The words were blunt, cruel, meant to wound. She was no longer welcome. He didn't need her, and in his mind, she had no right to claim space in this family or this life. Her heart raced. She tried to reason, to explain, to appeal to the humanity she knew existed in him. But the door slammed behind her as he left, leaving silence and the sting of betrayal in its wake. But the worst wasn't over. That evening, she discovered whispers outside her office, rumors circulating that questioned her character, her integrity, even her worth. The betrayal cut through her like ice. It wasn't just personal, it was a reflection of the systemic bias she had faced her whole life. And yet, amid the humiliation and isolation, a quiet determination began to grow. She realized that if she remained silent, the injustice would only deepen. Something inside her shifted. What they saw as weakness, she began to see as a spark. And as the days went on, the tension escalated further. Obstacles thrown in her path, opportunities withheld, casual yet pointed reminders that she didn't belong. Every setback felt designed to break her spirit. And yet, with each insult, each slight, each attempt to push her out, she began to prepare, not for revenge, but for revelation. Because no one could predict the storm that was quietly building beneath her calm exterior. She had been underestimated, dismissed, and humiliated, but she was ready. And what would happen next would leave everyone who doubted her completely stunned. The confrontation reached its peak in the boardroom that had always felt like a place of order. But now it was a battlefield. She stood there facing the people who had dismissed her, belittled her, and tried to erase her presence. Every eye in the room weighed on her like a judgment she didn't deserve. The adopted son, who had kicked her out and thought he had the power, leaned back smugly, certain the outcome was already written. Then came the moment that changed everything. Calmly, deliberately, she revealed the evidence of her achievements, the contracts she had secured, the investments she had overseen, the wealth she had quietly built and protected. Numbers, facts, and proof of her influence flashed before their incredulous eyes. Gasps replaced whispers. Smirks faltered. The room that had been thick with condescension now hung heavy with disbelief. Her presence, which they had tried to diminish, suddenly became undeniable. The power she had quietly carried, the skill, intelligence, and resilience they had ignored was laid bare. And in that instant, she wasn't just standing up for herself. She was showing the world what they had underestimated. The adopted son's face went pale, the arrogance replaced by shock. Every attempt to humiliate her had backfired spectacularly. In seconds, the balance had shifted. She had turned their doubt into revelation, their cruelty into astonishment. And though she had faced ridicule, isolation, and prejudice, she now stood stronger, untouchable in her dignity and accomplishments. But even as the tension in the room cracked and shifted, one question lingered in the air, one that would haunt them all. Could they ever see her as anything less than the force she had revealed herself to be? The tension in the room finally dissolved. But the echoes of that day would linger far longer than anyone could see. She had reclaimed her dignity, turned humiliation into triumph, and revealed the truth that had been buried beneath prejudice and assumptions. For her, the victory wasn't just about wealth or recognition. It was about being seen, truly seen, in a world that had too often tried to erase her. Her courage left a mark, not just on those who doubted her, but on herself. She realized that the injustice she faced wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader pattern of bias and discrimination that countless others endure every day. What she had endured and overcome was a reminder that resilience isn't born from comfort, but from confronting cruelty with unwavering strength. Outside the boardroom, life continued, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. Every glance, every decision, every interaction carried the weight of lessons learned. She had shown that dignity cannot be taken, that courage can turn fear into power, and that one person's resolve can expose the blind spots of an entire system. And yet the story doesn't end there. It serves as a reflection, a mirror, for society to look into. How many more faces of injustice go unnoticed? How many are judged, underestimated, or silenced because of the color of their skin? The assumptions of others or the cruelty of those in power? Her story is a warning, a revelation, and a call to action. It asks us to see, to question, and to stand, not just for ourselves, but for anyone who has been forced to endure what she endured. Because the real change begins when we refuse to